It is tempting to look at a lighthouse and think of it as something permanent. North Carolina's iconic lighthouses stand hundreds of feet tall and have all withstood powerful hurricanes for over a century. A closer look at the lighthouses and beacons of the Cape Fear River region, however, reveals a more complicated story. On the coast, the only constant is change. Shifting sands, the destruction of war, and the changing face of the region's economy have led to the construction and demolition of over a dozen different beacons throughout the Cape Fear region's history. Carolina's coast has been regarded throughout its history as a dangerous place for ships. Shoals are common throughout the region. For early travelers along the river, these navigation hazards were entirely unmarked. In addition, strong storms and shifting currents can drastically alter both the land and the underwater topography of the coast. The number of shipwrecks that occurred off the coast of North Carolina led sailors to nickname the state's waters the graveyard of the Atlantic. The Cape Fear River's shifting inlets and dangerous shoals certainly added to this reputation. Historical records list 291 shipwrecks along the Cape Fear River and its offshore shoals. Submerged wrecks, seldom salvaged, often became hazards themselves. In 1784, North Carolina's General Assembly took action to remedy this issue. The state ordered a construction of a new lighthouse, declaring that it should be built at the extreme point of Bald Head, an island at the mouth of the Cape Fear River. After numerous delays, the lighthouse was finally completed in 1794. Like the ships it was intended to guard, however, this lighthouse fell victim to shifting sands. Only 13 years after its completion, it was demolished because it was in danger of falling into the ocean. The location for the next Bald Head Island lighthouse was selected much more carefully. This lighthouse was situated on higher ground, well away from both the ocean and the mouth of the Cape Fear River. Despite its location, the area's shifting sands affected its utility in a different way. A powerful hurricane tore open a navigable passageway 8 miles north of the Bald Head Island. Called New Inlet, this opening provided ships with a shorter route into the mouth of the Cape Fear River and allowed them to bypass the Frying Pan Shoals entirely. Many ships opted to use this route, and the new Bald Head Island lighthouse declined in importance. Federal Point, the land adjacent to New Inlet, was also home to multiple lighthouses. Unlike the lights on Bald Head Island, these lighthouses were not brought down by natural phenomena, but instead by man-made causes. The first Federal Point lighthouse burned to the ground in 1836. The second was brought down by the Civil War. Situated within the walls of Fort Fisher, the Federal Point Lighthouse was a valuable guide to Confederate blockade runners for several years, but as the Union blockade tightened, the lighthouse was too prominent a target for Northern cannons. The fort's commander ordered the lighthouse to be pulled down in 1863. In fact, the Civil War took a toll on many of the lighthouses in the region. In the 1840s, the federal government had constructed a series of smaller beacons called range lights along the Cape Fear River. These lights were named after their locations on Price's Creek, Orton's Point, Campbell's Island, and Upper Jetty. These lights were crucial aids to Confederate blockade runners, whose stealthy delivery of supplies to Wilmington provided critical support for the war effort. In addition to using these beacons to guide the blockade runners, Confederate troops used the keeper's quarters of the Price's Creek Lighthouse as a signal station. As Union troops advanced, however, the governor of North Carolina ordered that all coastal lights be destroyed or rendered inoperable. If establishing permanent markers on land was difficult, marking offshore hazards was equally challenging. In the early 1800s, the United States Lighthouse Board developed light ships, essentially towers built on top of ships, anchored to a dangerous point offshore. The first Frying Pan Shoals lightship was placed on station in 1854. Life on a lightship was especially difficult. One sailor complained that life aboard a lightship was like a term of solitary confinement combined with the horrors of seasickness. In some parts of the state, Severe storms sometimes broke lightships loose from their anchors and wrecked them, causing the lightships themselves to become part of the graveyard of the Atlantic. Back on land, changes in engineering became the driving force in the construction and demolition of lighthouses. In 1981, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers completed a structure known as the Rocks, a rock wall that extended across New Inlet. Intended to reduce shoaling at the mouth of the Cape Fear River, the Rocks' construction meant that New Inlet was no longer a navigable passageway. Old Baldy, which had been out of commission since its beam was destroyed in the Confederate retreat, was recommissioned, and there was no longer need for a lighthouse at Federal Point. A visitor to the region today will find further changes. The Frying Pan Shoals lightship has been replaced by a light tower, but even that has been decommissioned and sold. Of the dozens of beacons built over the state's history, only 3 still stand today: Old Baldy, Price's Creek, and the Oak Island Light, which was built to replace Old Baldy in 1958 and is the only Cape Fear lighthouse still in operation. A few others have left behind foundations or archaeological footprints. In an ecosystem built around change, it is fitting that even these imposing structures are subject to the forces of nature.